And welcome aboard to another misadventure, another episode of the On Fek Circle, brought to you by JFtC. JFtC is your home for quality Blue Jays coverage throughout the offseason. I mean, during the season, obviously, but also during the offseason. Now, our podcasts slash YouTube casts, the live streaming, we're on our offseason schedule already. Yeah, thanks, Blue Jays, for making this speed up quicker than we wanted it to be. But basically, the 30-minute episodes, the On Fek Circle here, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and my colleagues Karen Suter's show, Sunny Side of the Dome, 6 p.m. on Thursdays, and at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. They're going to be on every other week. And the Jason McCouch radio podcast was off last night. It'll return for Halloween. I do not have my mask on already before you even start putting comments to come up on the live stream here. But that'll be the next radio podcast. We're going to stagger that throughout the off season. That way, we're not stretching for information, especially like now with the World Series. There's not a whole lot of Blue Jays centric news out there, even when there is, given the nature, and I don't want to say it's a policy, I think it's more of a nature of the front office. There's not a whole lot of stuff that really gets out there. The only thing that gets out there are crazy ideas and rumors, because people that are paid to do this have to have content, so they have to make stuff up. And we're going to talk about one of the ways that people make stuff up in just a little bit. I'm going to throw out a couple of ceremonial first pitches first. As we talked about, JFtC.com is your source for quality Blue Jays coverage throughout the offseason. We don't take a day off. There's articles ranging from player analysis, talking about, maybe recapping the season. Ryan Mueller's been doing a great series now that there's no more minor league games. He's looking at individual players. Have they progressed? Have they fallen back a bit? What can Blue Jay fans look forward to in the near or distant future with these guys? Our editor, Shaun Doyle, has been looking at individual players. Bob Ritchie and Jim Scott, when they do articles, they take a nice analytical slant about it. Eventually, I will stop being lazy and I will put out another Blue Jays bedtime story. I'm kind of letting the sting and the stunness, if you will, of the early playoff exit kind of subside a little bit before I start force feeding Blue Jay fans, happy moments from the past. So we're going to get all around to that. When you're done reading an article, or if you're hitting on the link on the website for this show, the On Fek Circle, or the radio podcast, or Karen's Sunny Side of the Dome, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a little discussion area. And by just signing in, it's free. You don't get inundated with spam emails or whatever. It's just another forum for you to interact with the Jays from the Couch staff, whether it be about things that I'm talking about on my podcast, for example, or when our senior editor puts up an article, reacting to that, or talking about the future of a minor league player, as Ryan Mueller's been putting things up there. And you can interact. I mean, there are some regulars out there. It is not a fan site. Okay, don't go all fanboy or fangirl on us. We want your honest opinions. We want your honest comments. So next time you go to JFtC.com and finish an article, or catch the podcasts from there, please do scroll down, consider registering there, and have your voice be heard as well. They're on the board. And the other ceremonial first pitch really is for you. It's all about you. There's a uniqueness for presenters like myself as far as the type of relationships that get developed between you, the listener and the viewers, and us as the people, as the content providers. I know on another project that I do here, based in the states, about college sports. I mean, we've had an entire fan base adopt us. Actually, almost an entire city, almost an entire city of football fans in San Antonio, Texas, embrace the shows we do because we talk so much about that particular school. The same thing happens here. If you're a regular, even if you're a listener, when my eyesight doesn't fail me, and I actually acknowledge people on the screen, but if you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook or on our YouTube channel, Jason from the Couch YouTube channel, you'll see the names come up of people that are posing questions, throughout the broadcast. And you see the same names, Dulcimerist and Rocket and, Matt Sweeby. I mean, you see regular people coming in all of the time. And even on the individual shows, the podcast, I think, has the most diverse group. But I mean, Karen certainly has a lot of followers, especially on Twitter and on Facebook. You seem to have a lot of interaction on Karen's show. Mine tend to range from family and friends. I even have an ex-brother-in-law that checks in on a regular basis. People that remember me from my radio days in Buffalo, New York. Special people that from day one when I started this little misadventure were always there. And, I still to this day, and again, people eventually catch on that they shouldn't build their life around live streaming sometimes. So, but I mean, I still imagine everybody that I have met or everybody that I've seen a profile picture of on Twitter or Facebook or the special people in my life that I know come on there. I can still visualize them listening. And they actually even pay attention. I mean, some people actually pay attention to me, which I know is scary, but it is Halloween season, so it's okay. We've even had people that were regular participants pass away. Someone that I had a really a great opportunity to meet and mingle with. His name was Seamus Nelson. He lived in Buffalo, but he came down for the Pony League World Series a couple of years ago. I got to meet with him. We got to talk baseball, got to talk Blue Jays, Buffalo Bisons, all of those kind of things. And then he passed away suddenly. So it is truly a death in the family when things like that happen. Now, this particular show, I'm throwing out to an individual that's facing a really tough personal journey here over the next month or so. Definitely been a very big part of the show, so much so that we've connected with charitable events. We've connected for my birthday. They came down and actually brought me actual buffalo wings from Buffalo in a container down for my birthday. So Butchie, this one's for you, but it's for all of you out there that have made it a habit to check in at some point, whether it be on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, on Twitter. Some people even send me emails, and that's fecklesswonder@jasonfromthecouch.com if you have ideas about shows. I mean, this particular show is for you. But Butchie, this one, absolutely for you. You hang in there, buddy. Okay? Time for some Feckless Wonders. I really just have one Feckless Wonder. And I'm just going to message up here. Our senior editor, Shaun Doyle, wanted to also send out to Butchie that the whole Jason from the Couch staff is thinking of you. Butchie's a part of our football league and our fantasy hockey league. And that's been great too, because, people that we got to know because they interacted or left comments about articles or left comments on the live shows, we've gotten to know them on an even more not intimate level, but we really get to see how they value players and their fandom and things like that. So we've had a fantasy baseball league that's already completed. Our football league's about halfway through. Our fantasy hockey league kicked off the end of September, beginning of October. So it's a great interactive space here. The JasonTheCouch.com, Jason the Couch YouTube channel, the various outlets. If you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you for wherever you're tuning in. I know Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, you name the premier podcast sites, you can find Jason the Couch programming on all of those places. But what I want to talk about here, we'll call it a public service. The last show 2 weeks ago, I did a public service announcement introducing Atkins Anonymous, which is a 12-step recovery program for Blue Jay fans that have just suffered trauma or emotional distress over and over again under the Atkins regime. 2021, 2022 have been very difficult years if you're a Blue Jays fan. I'm old enough that I go back to the expansion days. But, everybody, when they think of the Blue Jays, they think, touch 'em all Joe and 92 and 93, the World Series championships. There have been far more low points than high points, unfortunately. So if you're an old goat like me, and I don't mean old goat as in greatest of all time, I mean goat as in goat. You remember some of those tough seasons, 1987. 1984, which was a winning season, but the Tigers got off to such a ridiculous start. The Blue Jays, as well as they played in the second half of the season, they just could never catch up. Remember the years of Gord Ash. They were very difficult. There was ownership change. Gord Ash was a terrific business manager and ticket seller. He was not a terrific general manager, but he was there from almost day one. So to some degree, you're happy because you rewarded those people. But so that public service was last week. This week, I want to warn you against the evils of a website called Baseball Trade Values. Now, they mean well. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. It's just a very dangerous tool in the idle hands of baseball fans, especially in the offseason. And Lord knows we don't want the JP Morosis of the world and the other folks that are looking for attention. Look at me. Here's my tweet. Look at me. We don't want them to get a hold of it, but I have an idea that they probably do. And I'm going to read right off the bat why this is kind of dangerous. Okay. This is right from their website, the Baseball Trade Values website, or as I refer to it, Baseball Trade Values. This is the opening paragraph. Imagine you're the GM of your favorite team. Already trouble right there, but everybody pretends in their own way that they, if they were making trades, this would happen or the lineup would look this way. So it's fun. It's part of being a baseball fan. Who would you like to trade for? And then they have a little area where you can pick two teams and you can try to construct trades. And there's random values assigned to players. We're going to get into the details of the dangers of how they come up with these values in just a little bit here. But then it goes on to say, when you feel good about your trade proposal, click on Validate Trade. Now, of course, right there, it's the arrogance borders on Atkins-esque. Okay, so they think they've got the answer as to how the best trades can be orchestrated. And you want to see if it would be realistic enough to be accepted. I don't want this to devolve into bashing of the analytics crowd and analytics in general. People that tune in on a regular basis know I am not a fan of analytics. I think they're interesting calculations. I think they need to be limited. quite honestly, there are too many analytics that get developed because people aren't getting the answers that they want. They want a different outcome for their favorite players or their favorite teams. So they keep working under the guise of, oh, we're going to refine this, we're going to make it better. But really, what they're looking for is answers. It's sort of like churches. In theory, and whatever religion you may follow, and you may not follow any, but in theory, there's one document. There's one book that you're supposed to follow, and that's it. But then people don't like the way, this part of the ceremony is conducted, or they don't want to read this part of the book. They only want to read this part of the book. So it kind of splinters out. That's what happened with analytics. Basically, analytics is non-denominational worship, because it's all of these people that didn't want to follow what had been traditionally for thousands of years ways to worship, and now they can almost pigeonhole how they do that. But again, this is a Blue Jay show. This is not a social commentary show. So let me get back to the point at hand here. They had baseball trade values. It wasn't enough to just have standard analytics. They had to refine, for the sake of this program, ways to assess player values. Now, they have something called field value, but in essence, you could think of it like wins against replacement. It's a very similar kind of a deal. It's not exactly the same, but they use the calculation for wins against replacement. Like a 1 wins against replacement is equal to approximately $9 million. And that's been researched in a lot of different sites. So, okay, that's a good base to start with. But really, it right off the bat, you're having false information being placed into the equation and fed into the computer. And they also have a floor that they establish. And they establish this floor by taking the assumption that any major league team could get rid of all of their major league players, promote AAA and AA level players to the major league roster, save money, pay them the major league minimum, and then as a base, as a floor, every team that would do that would automatically have 59 wins. So they'd be 59 and 103 teams, any team that chose to do that. Now you can argue like my adopted hometown Pittsburgh Pirates, the Orioles before they started seeing the fruits of their labors. There's a lot of teams out there that you could argue have been putting out AAA and AA players for a long time. But that's the floor that they start with. They do admit, if you decide to go deeper and not just start putting people in there and try to balance out the numbers, that it's a proprietary software and proprietary process that they've developed. So they're not saying it's scientifically proven. They're just saying, and there's Drixley. Not a big fan of the trade value site. I'm right there with you, Drixley. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for checking in on the other projects I'm on as well. But it's I could do a 4-hour show on sites like this, but I'm just trying to keep you honest, especially coming off such a difficult loss as we experienced in the wild card round this year. You're looking for anything to make you feel better about the Blue Jays. And there's lots of actual result-driven things to feel good about. You don't need a site like Baseball Trade Values to justify trading someone you don't like, or trading someone that had a bad year, or trying to get over on an opponent. You don't need that. It's fun to play around. If it's snowing, you're snowed in, or it's bad weather, or it's freezing cold, or it's too hot, and you want to play around with it, okay. You can't take that seriously. And unfortunately, many of the people that cover baseball for a living buy into stuff like that. When you hear discussions by analysts about trade value, it's sites like BTV that they're going to assess what of the value of a player is. And again, if you put false information into a computer, you're going to get the answer that you want, but it's not necessarily the right answer. Now, they do some things well. I don't want it to be a total smash job. Primarily because I don't really want to get sued, and it's not really fair to have Shaun in that position and Jason from the Couch Snappers. But I mean, I think you have to have an honest thing, because I'm seeing far too many tweets referencing BTV. And it's something on our own message boards at Jason from the Couch that honestly I try to avoid. And when these things come up, I withdraw and I shut up, because I'm going to lose it on people whose opinions and whose talents I value very highly. But they factor in things like inflation. Like you can look at costs and you can establish an average increase in payroll. It happens. Okay, you don't need to have a CBA to really set the parameters for that. It's going to naturally happen. Once a player gets paid maybe above what people think is value, it's now establishing a standard, and that's going to trickle down not just to the big star players, but it's going to trickle down to the people that are not yet arbitration eligible, but the team wants to tie them up, or for arbitration salaries. It's going to influence what a player might get above the usual norm of 25% of his playing field value on his first year, 40% in his second, and 60% of his value he gets paid in arbitration. So they're not really being paid what they're worth, except for the very top echelon that get these mega contracts before they're up for free agency. But I do like the fact that when they do this equation, they do factor in a natural variable, which is inflation. Another positive thing that they do is years of control, because in real baseball, especially in today's baseball, how long you can control a player enhances the value to your team when you're thinking about moving salaries and moving players that potentially might not re-sign with your club. So they do have a way to factor that in. And again, it's almost like a safety net measure. So when you see the Blue Jays acquiring a Zach Pop, for example, as opposed to maybe an established reliever, I mean, I realize that they got, a reliever, in the deal. But I mean, Zach Pop, because of the amount of control that he has, was much more attractive to Ross Atkins than adding a second veteran reliever. And when we're talking about Blue Jay players, sure, Bo and Vladdy and Biggio and Gurriel and Hernandez are starting to get, they're in their getting into their arbitration years. So those number of years that can be controlled are there. But you can look at, let's say, Alejandro Kirk versus Danny Jansen. Now, I, as a general manager, would probably value Danny Jansen more on the field, day in, day out, in season. But when the offseason comes, I'm going to put a higher premium on getting returned back for an Alejandro Kirk than I am for a Danny Jansen. So, from that standpoint, baseball trade values does do a service to a degree. But the problem is that, again, they're establishing their own equation rather than using baseball standards to determine what a player's value is. So a player that's valuable to me as your shadow GM, and I'm looking at the roster, I'm going to put a high value on Danny Jansen in season. But the baseball trade value might make a Moreno or a Kirk far more expensive to acquire for other teams. So be careful about what you're looking at when you're proposing trades or looking for ways to determine, gee, I wonder what Teoscar Hernandez's value really is. It's a good tool, but you still have to do your homework and see, play videos, look at articles, see what the front office personnel and the field managers are saying about individual players and what their needs are. You can't have an equation tell you need a middle reliever as opposed to a fifth starter, or you need a Gold Glove caliber shortstop as opposed to a power hitting corner infielder. Now, I understand we've got some questions out there, so we're going to start with the Rao Report. Still think Danny Jansen could have been an all-star if he was 100% healthy this year. Christian, my partner, I could not agree with you more. I was saying that, I think, when we did our fearless predictions at the beginning of the year. I had said that Danny Jansen was going to be an all-star. He is so undervalued by the general fan. And that's not I'm not talking down at you. But again, you're just watching the games and you're enjoying them. You're not crunching all these numbers. So a guy like Danny Jansen kind of gets overlooked. But as far as controlling a pitching staff, and we have a question here from Drixley too, will the Blue Jays be a part of the Judge sweepstakes? Interesting question. I'm going to say no, only because the front office does believe in some of the talent in the minor leagues that they can step up into major league jobs probably 2 years down the road or whatever. But they already have big contracts for players that I think that they hold dear. People, the babies that they helped raise, Vladdy Guerrero, Bo Bichette. It'll be Alek Manoah pretty soon. They're going to have to spend money there. They've already spent big dollars. So they've already kind of pushed themselves up against that cap before you start getting into the luxury tax. And again, thank you for your question, Drixley and Christian. I can't imagine. I'm not, and I don't even know that Aaron Judge plays well in this lineup. Great player, but I don't know how that translates. And Robert Herbert, hard to believe the Phillies are in the series. Dr. Bob, love you, brother. The only Fek projection that I got right in my preseason projections was the Phillies going to the World Series. And that was before the Girardi firing. Tulsa Maris. Due to the IL stints of Kirk and Jansen the past 2 seasons, would it be wise to carry Mourinho as well if he can play another position in addition to catcher? That's another part of the value of a guy like Gabriel Mourinho that's not going to be calculated per se in a program like Baseball Trade Values. I have no problem with them keeping all 3 catchers, but the bottom line is, in reality, they really do need to get a frontline starter. They need to lengthen their bullpen. I do believe they could use a shortstop and move Bo Bichette, to second. I think all of those things are going to dictate that players in demand, like a Moreno, who, again, he's originally an infield. He was converted into a catcher. He's played some outfield. In major league games, not so much. But again, he has the background. So you're not as afraid to put a Gabriel Moreno at second base or third base or first base as you would be someone that's only played one position. Like you wouldn't, Lourdes Gurriel, you wouldn't want to move him back to the infield because he's already demonstrated when he first came over and signed with the Jays that he's not an infielder. You can argue maybe he's not an outfielder either, but he's making strides. He's getting there. Lourdes Gurriel is an older player. His legs are much older because of how many misdirected routes he ran earlier in his career in the outfield. But all great questions, all great input. That's what we're about here. We talked about earlier how it's a family. It's a dynamic. We want that interaction. I'm the one spewing my venom and losing my mind as our opening credits show. But it's the show is for you. I try to get outside of the box, walk around that box, and then come back and report to you. It's not just I'm not trying to be different for different sake. I look at a game differently, scouting background, coaching background. I have experience that I can translate, into a show like this and at least get you to think for yourselves. Ultimately, the On Fek Circle is about you sitting on the outside there, watching what's going on from that particular view, from this On Fek Circle viewpoint, and forming your opinions and your opinions, not what's in the paper, not what Baseball Trade Values says, not what I say, not what Karen, not what Shaun says, not what Jason the Couch says. We're putting it out there because we want you to form your own opinions and think for yourself and then say, yes, okay. Ideally, you're going to read more of our articles and you're going to tune in and you're going to download the podcast. That's great. But ultimately, if we're reaching one person who really hadn't thought about a topic before and it's caused them to actually take the time to do a little research and kind of refine their thought process, then we're doing our job. Now, I've been doing my job for about 3 minutes and 45 seconds longer than I'm supposed to, but we really do appreciate all the questions. Hope you will come back again in 2 weeks, Tuesday, 16, for another On Fek Circle. On Thursday, it's Sunny Side of the Dome. Karen Suter, the girl with Blue Jay colors glasses, but it's not just fangirl Blue Jay stuff. Karen knows her baseball. She knows how to break down a roster and look at analytics, but also look at actual needs and help you become a better fan. And of course, none of this would be possible without JasonTheCouch.com and the Jason the Couch radio podcast. Our senior editor, our founder, Shaun Doyle. He started all this. We're well over 300 episodes now. The website is a true source. It's a fountain of knowledge. So please make sure you check the website as well. I will come back and talk to you in 2 weeks. We'll see you on the main podcast on Monday.